Hey, what's up, guys? I'm not sure how this works. This is my first time doing a live stream, or I should say, this is my first time hosting a live stream. So I'm not sure how well it's going to do, but I wanted to talk a little bit about how I learn. People have been asking me what other languages and um, how many words a week do I learn, things like that. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about how I learn. And if anybody shows up, that's great. But if not, then this video will be on my channel, so that's good. So I've talked about this before a little bit with Siebold and others, but how I learn depends on which language I'm learning and what level it's at. So my French is a lot more advanced than my Norwegian. Those are the two languages I'm learning right now, French and Norwegian. Because they're at different levels, I learn in different ways. So with Norwegian, it's a new language for me. I'm not very good in it. I can say, basic introductions. I can be polite. Jeg snakker litt norsk. So a lot of what I use for Norwegian is gamified. I use apps. I use my phone a lot with Norwegian. I use Duolingo. I use Babbel. I use Drops, which is great for vocabulary. I use Memrise sometimes, not as much as I used to. But the big thing for me is that I don't have a whole lot of time to dedicate to studying my target languages. So pretty much right now, even with quarantine and everything, I have, roughly 20 minutes to a half hour a day that I can study languages. And that's mainly divided between, downtime, time in the bathroom, when I'm laying down trying to go to sleep at night, and when my daughter is having a nap. Those are the main times that I get some language learning in. So as far as I'm concerned, my study time is very precious, and I like to use it as effectively for me as I can. And I will never claim to be a model of efficiency, but I try and do what I can. So for apps, my main strategy with apps is to not stress, to get through as much as I can without too much stress. I don't stress out about mistakes. Pretty much like in Duolingo, if you're familiar with the way Duolingo works, you'll know what I'm talking about. But the sentence will come up, I'll listen to it or read it, and I will put my gut answer as quick as I can. The first answer that comes to my head, that's the one that goes down. Normally, that's the correct answer, and I feel like that's a common testing strategy that people use is, go with your gut, go with the answer that comes to you first. So, and it does another thing for me to put down the first answer that comes to mind is it teaches instincts. If someone comes up to you and starts speaking French, someone comes up to you and says, "Bonjour, comment allez-vous?" Your brain has to process the fact that someone is speaking French to you, and then it has to flip into a new mode to respond in French. And so by answering the questions in Duolingo quickly, it trains your brain to act on instinct when another language comes into your head. Hi, Marissa. How are you? Thank you for tuning in. Geez, I'm surprised anybody came. So when I'm playing an app, when I'm playing Duolingo or Drops or something, I try and go as quick as I can. That way, I'm learning instincts, and I'm getting as much learning done in the small amount of time that I have as I can. If I make a mistake, then I slow down and I look at why I made the mistake. And I don't stress out about mistakes. I actually really like making mistakes because I learn the most from mistakes. So when I make a mistake, I stop and I look at the answer. I compare the answer that I gave to the correct answer and try and figure out what exactly I did wrong. And this is an important part of my learning. If it's something big, if it's a mistake that I keep making over and over again, I might write the sentence down. Because I've learned that one of the ways that I work best with languages and with things, remembering things, is if I write something down, I'll probably remember it. So if I make a mistake, I slow down, I analyze why I got it wrong, and then if I need to, I write it down so that I don't make the same mistake again. But so for Norwegian, I'm using Duolingo, Drops, Babbel, Memrise, like I said, but I also have this book that I'm a big fan of. This book, everything's backwards, it's nice. It's called The Mystery of Nils. See, these are things that you learn when you live stream for the first time, that everything's inverted. The Mystery of Nils, it's a book that I got. I heard about it. I don't remember how I heard about it, but it is really nice because it's not a textbook, even though it is. It's a novel, and it's a story. It's a mystery, and so I'll show you the first chapter. First chapter, you won't be able to read it really because it's mirrored, but the first chapter is only like a paragraph. The language is very simple. These are the words that you learn. Your first time getting on a Norwegian lesson. Erna vagudu, jeg lager en gave til Susan. Hun har bursdag. These are very simple sentences that even I can read and understand. And then as you go through the book, I'll show you a page later in the book that I haven't gotten to yet, but let's see. So this is chapter 26. You can see there's a lot more text there to go from one sentence or one paragraph, one small conversation to pretty much a full length page of text that you could read, that you'll be reading a novel. So that book has been super helpful for me because I love reading, and you'll see when I show you these other books that I've gotten. Literature is a big connection for me with the language, and that's actually been one of the difficult things about Norwegian for me is I'm unfamiliar with the great works of Norwegian literature. Excuse me, goodness, all this gardening today is tuckering me out. Yeah, Marissa, it's great. And they, if you're not learning Norwegian, they also make the company that makes it is called Scapago. And they also make a book that's similar for Swedish, and they make one for German as well. I forget what those other books are called. They're not all The Mystery of Nils. The Mystery of Nils is just the first one. And there's actually 2 books. This is The Mystery of Nils Part 1. The Mystery of Nils Part 2 is 100% in Norwegian. There's no English at all. So I want to get that one as well. But oh goodness, yawning. So I use the apps and I use this book, and then I also consume some Norwegian television and some podcasts. If you go to nrk.no, you can find a lot of shows to watch. There's one that's a kid's show called Fenteragen. I watch that with my daughter sometimes, and she loves it. And I can understand all of it, so I love it too. And then there's another one that I really like called Hagenmin, that's about gardening. And since I'm using my quarantine time to make garden, it's a good crossover to different things that I'm doing in my life. For French, I almost exclusively consume French media, not so much TV. I don't really have time for that, but news. If I read the news, I'll go to France 24 or France Inter first. I speak to a native speaking friend of mine a lot. We're pretty much talking much of the day. Not always in French, but we'll slip in and out of French throughout the day. So, but I also have some books that that I use for French too, of various levels. And I dropped one actually. So when I got to a sufficiently high level in French, and actually I bought some French books while I was in France. I bought the Lord of the Rings trilogy in French from a bookseller on the Seine near Notre Dame for like €8. I bought the whole trilogy for €8. I thought it was a great deal. But now that I'm advanced enough, apologize for the yawning. So the book that I'm reading right now is Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone in French. Sorry for the inversion. Harry Potter à l'école des sorciers. That's my main one that I'm reading right now, and that's a good one. I want Harry Potter in every language that I study because it's a story that I know, it's a story that I like, and because I know it and like it, there are landmarks that I can watch for. If I'm going through and reading the book and I'm lost, when I get to a new chapter, I can say, oh, I remember this chapter, or even within a chapter, if some of the names and some of the things that are happening, I can latch on to act as a landmark for context. And you have to be careful with Harry Potter in French. I don't know how it is in other languages, but in the French version, they have changed a lot of the names. So you just have to be aware of who is talking if they've changed the names. Like Professor Snape is called Le Professeur Rouge. So and it's not even like a francophone version of Snape. It's just different. He's Professor Red. So you just have to kind of be aware. But if you look online, if you're lost, if they have changed all the names, you can usually find a list of what the character names are in your edition. Spanish edition, that's great. I want to get the series in Norwegian. I'd like to get it in Icelandic. The nice thing is it's published officially in like 75 languages and unofficially in like 100. So Harry Potter is great. And then, so one Christmas, I just pretty much asked for French books. And I gave a list and I got pretty much all of them. So, of course, Le Petit Prince, you got to have Le Petit Prince. It's like a must-have for a French language learner. It's really easy to read. I haven't read the whole thing yet, but it's really easy and enjoyable. That's another one that's in a ton of languages. I have Les Contes de Monte Cristo, which I haven't read. It's the thing is, with some of these great works of French literature, just like when you get into great works of English literature, if you're going to go back and read, not even like Shakespeare, but if you go back and read books from the 1800s, say go back and read Edgar Allan Poe or even H.P. Lovecraft, just the way that they write is different. The way that they speak is different. There are words that they use that are different. Reading Jane Austen is a lot harder than reading Harry Potter. So, and it's the same thing when you get into these old works of French literature. There are going to be words that they don't use anymore. There are going to be ways of saying things that are difficult. A lot of times the level of language that they're using is higher. Just like if when you're reading Jane Austen, you hear people say like, allow me to assure you that my intentions are, that's not something that people say anymore, but they used to. So what's this? Do you need any advice for starting French? Do I have any advice for starting French, or can you recommend a good beginner material for French? So, as far as literature goes, Le Petit Prince is great for starting out in French. I am probably going to be a minority in the language learning community, because if someone comes up to me and says, "How can I start learning French?" I'm going to say, "Go to Duolingo," because you know Duolingo is not perfect by any means. It has flaws. It has things that don't work right. But in terms of getting you started in the language, giving you a basic foundation that you can build on, you can't beat free, and I don't think you can beat Duolingo. If you want to pay a little bit of money, you can do Babbel, you can do, there's all kinds of apps you can pay for, and that's fine. But for me, I mean, I went from almost no French at all to being able to read and translate Voltaire through Duolingo, just through Duolingo. So I think Duolingo is very powerful. It's not perfect. It's not going to make you native fluent. It's not going to help you. It's not going to make it so that you can pass a certification exam, right off the bat. It takes work. But for most people that want to learn French, I'm going to say go to Duolingo. Um, there are, I have seen some MOOCs, some massive open online courses in French. One of them that I saw was made for people who were moving to a francophone country. Um, so I would also look for MOOCs on the French language. One website I use for MOOCs is called FutureLearn, and it's really great. I'm learning. I've taken a couple MOOCs on Norwegian there and Irish, and they're great. If you're learning Irish, go find the Irish 101 series of courses on FutureLearn. They're free, they're amazing, and you'll learn so much Irish from them. Um, and then I have some harder books in French. Like, I wanted this one because I love Napoleon history, but it is super hard. It's the letters of Napoleon to Josephine. And it's not just hard because of the language, it's also in cursive. It's like scans of the actual letters. So I guess it's not scans. It's constant. I mean, it's a font, but it's really tough because it's in cursive, like French script. And then I have the Three Musketeers, which is the first like great literature book I tried to crack open and read, and I wasn't ready for it, and it was really hard, and it's super thick. Um, so for me, you know, um, let's see. I have Irish heritage, so I couldn't get past the spelling not matching what I heard. So the spelling in Irish is not actually that big of a deal once you learn why it's happening. So, like for instance, um, there's letter combinations that are not. So there's no letter H in Irish. Um, and so, but you see H's all the time in written Irish today, and that's because the H signals a mutation in sound. So if you see a BH in Irish, in written Irish, that is going to make a V sound. So like the word for dark or black is DUBH, and it's pronounced Dove. So yeah, coming from Irish like when I started studying Irish, the spelling was just ridiculous. But if you learn why the H's are everywhere in weird places, there's also some other weird spelling things that happen. But once you learn how it works, it's not that bad. French spelling is much harder. I just have this. Let's see. My French goal is once learning it to read great French literature. Yeah, so when I was getting toward the end of my Duolingo tree in French, I was doing the immersion function, which they don't have anymore on Duolingo. I wish they did because it was amazing. But I was translating a paragraph of Voltaire, of Candide by Voltaire, into English, And I was just kind of in autopilot, just doing my thing. And I realized at some point, um, holy crap, I'm translating Voltaire into English, and it was a big thing. The other thing I just thought about, as far as learning French, there are enough French things out there that you can find something that connects to one of your passions. So I love to cook, amongst other things, and so one of the first podcasts that I went to go find was a cooking podcast that I found on France Inter, and it's called On va déguster, and it's, it's natural speed. It's a radio show about cooking, so it's also provided me with a contrast point where, like, I was listening to it and I'm like, I have no idea what they're saying at all. Like, this is complete gibberish to me. Now I can listen to it and follow the conversation, but um, yeah, no, you're good. You're good. I think you're just like one of the only people here. So you're good. I love the questions because I was afraid that I would just be rambling about just random stuff. So but so you can find, with French, there are enough podcasts and radio shows out there that you can find a podcast or radio show in French that will align with something that you're passionate about, whether it's books or cooking or nerdy things or history. It's out there. Some other languages don't have as much of that, but normally the big ones do. You know, any of the major languages of the world will have books or podcasts and radio shows about all kinds of different things. So if you decide to go to Irish, you could go and find the Gaelic radio network in Ireland called RTE G, I think it's called, for Gaeilge. Um, it's all in Irish. It's really great. In Norwegian, there's NRK, which is the national broadcasting network there. They do radio shows and TV. Ireland has another one that the acronym, or not Ireland, Iceland has another one whose acronym I can't remember right now. But so yeah, so finding content that you can learn from is really great. Trying to get it to align to what you love to do. Like I said, when I started listening to On va déguster, it was pretty much incomprehensible to me, but it provided me with a contrast point where, when a couple weeks ago my friend sent me like a 3-minute voice message all in French and I listened to it, I contrasted that with my feeling of listening to On va déguster for the first time and not understanding anything to understanding this whole voice message, and it was super cool. Um, so so yeah, that's pretty much how I learn. Lots of apps and gamification with Norwegian, not so much with French, more natural and immersive strategies for French. Um, if I were to throw another language into the mix, like if I started learning Irish again, which I'd love to do, I'm constantly having to fight off Irish and Norwegian, or not Norwegian, Irish and Icelandic from creeping into my head. Like, go away. I got to concentrate on French and Norwegian. But if I were to throw Irish into it, or Icelandic, I would probably split my apps. Maybe do Duolingo with Irish and drops with Icelandic, or I don't know. But that's a bridge that I'll come to if it ever comes. But that's pretty much all I had to say about how I learn. I don't worry about how many words per week I'm learning. I don't worry about. I don't even really worry about, like, pounding the grammar into my head. I feel like, and maybe this is something that I felt since I became a parent. Like, my daughter is 3, and she never is worried about, you know, where the verb in a sentence goes, or is this a proper noun, or is this a definite verb or a definite noun or an indefinite noun. And she never worried about the grammar. She learns the grammar by using it, and with our gentle redirections to say, like, she was, for a while, she was saying mines. Oh, that's mines. And it took a couple weeks of like just gently being like, there's no S in mines. It's always mine. That's mine. This one's yours. This one's mine. And so I try as much as I can to not necessarily mimic the way that children learn, but I just don't worry about grammar as much as other people do, because I feel like I will learn the grammar as I'm using the language. And I'm lucky enough, I feel like I have a little bit of a sense of, if I say something in French, it sometimes it kind of just feels not quite right, and then my native speaking friends will be like, yeah, you got that wrong, it's actually this. So, making mistakes, just open your mouth and let the crappy French or Spanish or whatever you're learning come out, and let your native friends correct you, because they should be happy to do that if they're looking for a language buddy. But that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about. So I think I'm going to end this stream. Thank you for tuning in, all two of you. And if you're watching this later, thank you for tuning in, and stay tuned to my channel for more about language learning and everything about that. So, au revoir, Hadet.